From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, this is From the South. I'm Jose Daniel Lopez. The nations of the world have voted to end the U.S. blockade against Cuba at the United Nations General Assembly. The vote was 189 in favor, 2 against, and no abstentions. Only the United States and Israel opposed the resolution. Cuba's Foreign Minister Bruno Rodriguez addressed the General Assembly just before the actual vote. He made an emotional appeal to support the lifting of the ban and explained how badly the blockade has been affecting the lives of millions of Cuban people.
Very shortly.
The second day of the debate saw a vote that once again isolated the United States within the international body. Washington, D.C. must now face the demands of nearly every country that voted in favor of lifting the blockade on Cuba. Their message was clear: the economic blockade must end.
The
result of the vote is 189 for, 2 against, and 0 abstentions. Resolution A73L3 is approved.
Abstenciones, 0.
Most of member countries reserted their support for Cuba and rejected U.S. attempts of manipulation.
The U.S. government manipulates and crudely politicizes the world's demands for human rights. They do the same for any amendment presented in this stage, in order to switch the focus of the resolutions against the blockade. They do this to create a pretext in favor of the blockade and to gain a supposed international endorsement in order to force more sanctions against our people.
Following mass condemnation of U.S. manipulation, Cuban Foreign Ministry Bruno Rodriguez stated that the blockade amounts to genocide under the 1948 Genocide Convention.
We can't count the number of human victims that this blockade has left. This is a genocidal act by the U.S. under subsections B and C of Article 2 of the Prevention and Sanctions Resolutions Against Genocide of 1948. It is even a violation of international humanitarian rights.
Rodriguez also remarked the U.S. has no moral authority to criticize neither Cuba nor any other country when it comes to human rights.
The United States government has absolutely no moral authority to criticize Cuba or any other nation in regards to human rights. We reject their repeated manipulation with political ends and their doublespeak of the government that has committed countless human rights violations. They have used nuclear weapons against civilians. They are the biggest producers of weapons of mass destruction. They proliferate armed races. They try to militarize cyberspace and create espionage networks across the world.
Over the last 26 years, Cuba has received a great deal of support from UN member nations in their effort to lift the economic blockade. And on Thursday, yet another diplomatic blow was dealt to the White House when their anti-Cuba amendments seeking to consolidate support for the blockade were all rejected. Cuba is fighting to end the attack on its people and has the support of the international community.
Cuban President Miguel Díaz-Canel praised today's resolution. He said via Twitter, "This is a victory for Cuba. The United States has suffered 10 defeats at once. The people of the world voted for Cuba because they know that our cause is truly just. Cuba is respected for Fidel and for Raúl, for our revolution, and for the Cuban people. Leave the blockade." And the Deputy Speaker of South Africa's parliament has said the U.S. blockade on Cuba is ideologically driven. He said that the blockade is an attempt by the U.S. to impose its will on other countries and goes against the interests and wishes of the people of Cuba. He added that the sanctions on Venezuela are an attempt by the U.S. to sabotage the Bolivarian revolution.
We detest any unilateral sanctions that are ideologically, politically driven, that have got nothing to do with the wishes of those countries involved. We can't selectively use respect of sovereignty So the US blockade of Cuba is unfair. Historically, in the United Nations forums, the majority of countries, and this is a huge majority, have objected to sanctions against Cuba.
Peru's opposition leader Keiko Fujimori has been transferred to a women's prison. This comes a day after a court ordered her detention. A judge ordered Fujimori to serve 36 months of preventive detention. Our correspondent in Lima, Jaime Herrera, has more.
After being detained for half a day in a holding cell in the Ministry of Justice, Keiko Fujimori, the daughter of former President Alberto Fujimori, has been transferred to the women's prison of Chorrillos, where she will serve a 3-year sentence while investigations continue. She is being accused of money laundering and of organizing a corruption network that involves her political party. Fujimori's attorneys say they will appeal the decision and they hope the sentence will be revoked.
Accompanied by the police, Keiko Fujimori was transferred to the women's section of the Chorrillos prison in the south of Lima. She'll be detained for at least 36 months. The daughter of Alberto Fujimori is accused, along with 10 other people, of using her political party to launder money.
Is the transfer of illegal funds to an allegedly legal account that would finance campaigns, making it seem like people are contributing when they aren't.
There was a risk that the former presidential candidate would flee the country or take advantage of her political power in Congress to obstruct the legal process against her. That's according to lawyer Cruz Silva, who says there's overwhelming evidence in the form of seized documents from the house of her advisor, Vicente Silva Checa.
Documents found in the offices of Mr. Silva Checa reveal the plan to present different scenarios during the process to vindicate her. There was also a conversation between them suggesting that she should claim financial hardship.
Immediately after the verdict was passed, several organizations took to the streets to support Judge Richard Concepcion, who sentenced her.
It means that justice must prevail in our country. It doesn't matter who, but there will always be justice.
I am very happy because I think our country is totally destroyed because of corruption. People are suffering in the hospitals and in the streets.
This year, the Fujimori family hasn't been able to escape the Peruvian justice system. Keiko now joins her father in prison. 3 of her brothers have also been prosecuted for money laundering and bribery.
We'll take a short break now. Join us again after this. Welcome back. The Central Workers Union of Uruguay started a partial strike on Wednesday. The decision was made in solidarity with the Gas Workers Union, who have been on a strike for 2 weeks. Protesters marched to Montevideo's Central Plaza. Brazil's president-elect Jair Bolsonaro has announced he will transfer Brazil's embassy in Israel from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. It follows President Donald Trump's decision to move the U.S. embassy, drawing the disapproval of the international community for violating the international law. Many believe that the status of Jerusalem should be decided in a peace process between Israel and Palestine. Brazilian Judge Sergio Moro has agreed to be the Minister of Justice in President-elect Jair Bolsonaro's administration. After a meeting with Bolsonaro, Moro confirmed the news. Sergio Moro is the judge who sentenced former President Luis Ignacio Lula da Silva to 12 years in prison. The first batch of U.S. troops has arrived at a base in Texas as part of an operation against the incoming migrant caravan. The U.S. Defense Department has confirmed that over 5,000 soldiers will be dispatched to the Mexican border this week. On Wednesday, U.S. President Donald Trump said that the total number of troops could reach as high as 50,000. The Trump administration said it will not let the migrants enter U.S. territory. But neither threats nor exhaustion can stop the second group of migrants heading north through Mexico. They are hoping to catch up with the first caravan.
At night, migrants plan for the day ahead, when they will continue their journey.
We have little time to rest. Look at those people. They are bathing. They are resting because their bodies are in pain and the water helps.
It's difficult for some of them to start the walk at 3 in the morning. Their wounded feet, worn-out shoes, and the lack of food hinder their progress. This caravan is the most ethnically diverse. Although they hail from various countries, they all share the same goal and reasons for migrating.
I have 3 daughters and I can't support them. The situation in Guatemala is very bad. That is why I joined the caravan.
The first group of the migrant caravan, who entered Mexican territory 10 days ago, want to get to Mexico City.
We should join and form a single caravan. We hope we can meet them, because that way we will be stronger. Central America all together.
There are approximately 390 kilometers between the first and second migrant caravan. They plan to meet in the Mexican capital. The long and hard days don't matter to them. All they want is to join forces with the first caravan so they can be stronger and safer on the road together.
Antigua and Barbuda is celebrating its 37th Independence Day with a ceremonial parade. The country commemorated its break from British rule. Prime Minister Gaston Brown spoke about what the date means during a televised speech.
We must bring back justice to our shores, just as we brought back independence and freedom 37 years ago. If our forebears could win all that they did, despite racism, exploitation, and discrimination, to create a free and independent nation, then we too are obliged to take the furthest step to build for this generation and the next a strong nation, the inferior of none, the equal of all, with the will to be better than most.
Jamaica's Prime Minister Andrew Holness has opened the Jamaica-China Goodwill Infant School that will charge no fees. In a speech, he sincerely thanked the Chinese government for donating to the cause. Holness highlighted how important education is for the development of children. The new school will remain under government control with a board of governors. 24 archaeological sites have been found underwater in Lake Titicaca in Bolivia. There are now plans to build an underwater museum in one of them. More on this report.
Lake Titicaca is the highest lake in the world at 4,000 meters above sea level. Over 2,000 years ago, several cultures were located around it. The biggest one of them were the Tiahuanacota. Today, many of their buildings are underwater.
24 underwater sites have been detected. Among there are many housing settlements. Over time, the lake has dried up between 27 and 22 meters, and those settlements are nearing the shore.
The other type of archaeological sites are sacred places, where religious ceremonies took place and where Inca authorities gave their offerings such as gold, silver, and other precious metals.
We have found many archaeological pieces underwater, including all kinds of accessories people used in their everyday lives. We are studying everything we can find, from the accessories to the shape of their homes, and we don't plan to exhibit every piece we find.
Ojelaya is one of the largest underwater archaeological sites found here. There is a proposal to build an underwater museum with a proposed investment of $10 million and the participation of 13 nearby municipalities.
There will be recreations of what pre-Inca culture was like. Over 10,000 pieces we have found only in this area. All of these research we have done is thanks to the help of the UNESCO and Belgian institutions. Our data shows that we have discovered less than 10% of what remains of the Tiahuanaco culture.
The decision to study underwater archaeological remains in the sacred Inca lake has generated the need for a new specialty: underwater archaeology. The first group of students of this new subject matter has already graduated from the Public University of La Paz.
We'll take a short break now. Join us again after this. Welcome back. China has assumed the presidency of the UN Security Council for the month of November. They have made a commitment to strengthen multilateralism and of more transparent management in that body. The Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs say that they will continue their commitment to promote the principles of the UN Charter, as well as to take more effective measures that allow the political solution of regional conflicts. El Salvador's President Salvador Sánchez Serén has met with his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping in Beijing. This is the first time that a Salvadorian president has made an official visit to China. Both sides have signed agreements of cooperation in technology and innovation. El Salvador is the third Latin American country in the past 2 years to switch alliances from Taiwan to China. Cuban President Miguel Díaz-Canel has arrived in Moscow to start a 3-day official visit. Díaz-Canel is expected to meet Russian President Vladimir Putin and Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev. This is his first international tour since assuming the Cuban presidency in April 2018. According to official reports, the Cuban president will also visit China, North Korea, Vietnam, and Laos. Now let's take a look at some other stories from around the world.
Dozens of pro-Kurdish demonstrators have gathered outside the BBC building to urge the UK to stop supporting Turkey on World Kobane Day. They condemn the recent attacks on Kobane's Koreli and Salim villages in North Syria by Turkish forces. The area has been a battleground between Islamic State militants and Kurdish fighters since 2014. The takeover forced civilians to flee. Protesters carried banners featuring jailed Kurdistan Workers' Party leader Abdullah Öcalan. Could socialism in the United States be making a comeback? For two young American men, socialism is the way forward. So they've joined the Democratic Socialists of America, one of the largest political movements in the U.S. They believe a socialist system is a fairer system. The party has been experiencing resurgence after the election of Donald Trump in 2016. While membership remains comparatively small to the Democrats and Republicans, the White House is taking note of the movement's growing popularity. In October, the Council of Economic Advisors published a report that noted socialism is making a comeback in American political discourse.
I think for me, the biggest draw for socialism is the fact that it means that you put people over profits. And in a country, especially like the United States, where capitalism is so deeply ingrained into our national psyche, the idea that someone could value a person's life and well-being more so than the amount of profit they can generate is frankly radical, and we see that, all over the discourse.
According to the Ukrainian president, being on the list of Russian sanctions is an honor. Petro Poroshenko made fun of the new Russian sanctions imposed on high-level Ukrainian businessmen, saying that being on the list is kind of a state award. He made the comments alongside German Chancellor Angela Merkel during a press conference in Kiev.
A Boko Haram attack on 2 villages and a refugee camp in Nigeria has killed at least 12 people and injured dozens more. Militants reportedly overran the 2 villages and camp after overpowering soldiers and civilian militias guarding the camp. Despite government insistence that Boko Haram is near defeat, Nigeria still faces frequent attacks by the militants.
Because they want to take attacking for the IDPs, and then their officer they that checking points, that gates, they're going to exchange fire to BH. They exchange fire, the BH they get a big of rifle, and then they're going to push their officers there slow. Their BH they enter this house, they go carry their property in foot, they put it inside their vehicle, they go back to in bush.
Ethiopia's parliament has appointed the country's first female Supreme Court chief, the latest post in a trend of elevating women to high offices. Miasa Ashinafi, a prominent human rights lawyer, is to serve as president for the Federal Supreme Court. She has been approved after being nominated by Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed. In Kenya, female genital mutilation is illegal, but that hasn't stopped the practice in the town of Kuria.
Jane is a victim of female genital mutilation. It happened when she was just a child. At age 15, she got married, so her brother could continue his education. Eventually, she left her husband to spare her $2 of the ordeal. She's now the founder of the organization that aims to help girls.
Some people choose to mutilate the girls right after their birth. Why would one make a child pass through all this pain and the trauma only for what they want the baby to be later? I don't think the law had any impact, actually. It created more problems than before. This culture is still alive and puts women in a position in which they cannot speak on their own. They are forced to marry, to get pregnant when they are still very young. This also creates high levels of poverty.
A solution is possible with education and awareness for women. Those who escape are unsupported, which is something that needs to change.
I keep my girls at home because they have nowhere else to go.
The law doesn't help girls. If their parents are arrested, they're left isolated. Just like Jennifer Gatti, her mother fled her husband's house with no resources to continue studying.
For me, genital mutilation doesn't help for anything. The queer community must abandon this. Education can help them. If they go to school, the girls could get a degree to get a job that they like.
When we talked to the mother, she said that the husband's brother kicked her out of the house after she didn't allow her daughter's mutilation. They told her she was bringing a curse to the family and that she shouldn't stay with them. She rented a room and every day she does different little jobs like carrying water or washing clothes for others. Sometimes she cleans someone else's house. That's how she pays for her daughter's necessities.
The girls keep living as always. They only think of having babies and leaving school.
We really need to educate women so they take their own decisions in life. There's no other way. If you believe that your parents can do that for you, that you'll get the life you want like that, that won't happen in this culture.
These women want to raise the aspirations of young girls so they can reject age-long customs that inflict unbearable pain that lasts a lifetime. From Migori, Oscar Epelde.
We come to the end of this news brief. These and many other stories you can find at our website at telesurtv.net/English. And join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Jose Daniel Lopez. Thank you for watching.